Helen, Chris, good morning. We're here today to discuss Procurement Customer Experience, a topic that us three are obviously very passionate about. So what we can do is unpack the discussion a wee bit further, really make it tangible around why we're targeting this concept as a business from a directional perspective and how we're weaving that through our applications and our technology landscape. I might pass to you, Chris, in your capacity as our VP for our Spend Management division. Why has Advance decided to place its bets and really go hard in the customer experience space for procurement?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Look, this is something we've been thinking about for a very long time. We work very closely with a lot of our customers, and obviously we're all aware of challenges in the procurement domain around supply chain, ESG, inability to access key resources. Like, there's been more pressure on procurement than there's ever been to deliver on the original outcomes that they've had set out as their remit, but also these growing pressures coming from external factors. We're product providers, we're technology providers, and there's always this mindset that technology can solve everything. And it's true to a degree, but where PCX has come from is this genesis of these two common concepts, customer experience and user experience. And looking at technology and our customers from a unified lens. It's not just about the tech, but it's also about procurement having a better appreciation of who their customers are within their organisation and figuring out, using good CX concepts combined with good technology, how do we actually assist procurement delivering in these outcomes where they've been more constrained than they've ever been before. It's our firm opinion that for procurement to be able to deliver on these outcomes, we need to create an environment where they can work in collaboration with their customers, liberating and democratising the process as much as possible so all parties can lean in to deliver on these outcomes.
I'm really excited about these next few minutes, Chris. You always give incredible insights across these kind of discussions. And you bring up a really interesting point. For a long time, the traditional procurement policy would say, if you are going to spend over £250,000, this is the process you follow. I suppose PCX challenges them to think about how many different customer groups are buying a £250,000 thing. And what is the different experience that I give party A versus party B? Helen, is there anything that you would build on from what Chris has just said?
I just agree. Talking to customers, especially over the last few years, there's been more and more importance about enabling technology to collaborate, for procurement teams to be able to collaborate with more users around the organisation and also with suppliers. And that's something that we've always thought about when we've been developing technology, that all of those different types of stakeholder in the procurement customer experience are important users of the technology.
I think that's a really important piece for us to build upon straight away. Who are the customer groups for a procurement function in today's day? What is the user journey, or how is the user journey, the customer journey, being thought about by these procurement stakeholders or these procurement leaders? From my perspective, would it be fair to bucket these user groups into four areas? We've got our executives, so the people running our organisations, our heads of departments, our line of business owners. They're one very specific customer group for procurement. We've then got our internal buyers, so the non-procurement user, a critical customer group for procurement to be thinking about. We've then got our external customers, being our suppliers, being our partners. What's the experience we're giving them? And then a really important group as well, particularly in the race for talent nowadays, is there's the internal procurement team as well. They're another customer group for a procurement leadership to think about. What are they doing to give the internal procurement team a great experience? The theory or conversation I have with a lot of customers is, if you've got a candidate that you really want to join your business, and that candidate has 3 other job opportunities, how is the way that you think about delivering your procurement services going to differentiate you?
I fully agree, Mark. Let's use suppliers as an example from a PCX standpoint. So, the view of how we work with suppliers and the role suppliers have within our organisations very much changing. If we really appreciate the value of suppliers, they're probably one of our most critical contributors to all procurement outcomes. It's not just them responding to our needs and delivering the value our organisation needs to execute on its business objectives, right product, right time, right price, etc. They're also a bit of a critical input in terms of our ESG outcomes and supply chain, etc. If we think about those pressures, we can't achieve these outcomes without the supply data coming in. So, why do we need to create a better experience for them? Well, traditionally, suppliers have got their own priorities, their own businesses, their own systems. We are asking them to come in and spend their time on our organisation to better enable our organisation, with their own time constraints and pressures, and they've got the same pressures that we have from a procurement standpoint as well. So creating this optimal experience for them to be able to come in and engage with us and want to engage with us and work with us as a partner of choice, and quite critically provide this key data and insights to our business is key. And that is fundamental to what PCX is all about.
And it's the same with internal buyers as well, Chris. Procurement teams are reliant upon all of that wider organisation and those end users to help them achieve those big goals and their objectives. So we need to enable technology and enable them to follow the processes and the policies that an organisation might have in place easily, and be able to manage that through the ecosystem of technology that they're using on a day-to-day basis.
The travel and expense process in businesses, which is part of spend management, has for a long time been digitised. People have been taking photos of receipts, not everyone, but people have been taking photos of receipts for a long time. And then at the big end of procurement, if you do need to go and run a £250,000 engagement, you've had a procurement convener join you on that experience. But what I hear a lot from the market is there's this hole in the middle of this, what organisations would call low value, low risk procurement activity. I was speaking to an organisation in Ireland only a couple of weeks ago, and they have 2,000 what they call low value, low risk quote processes, which is valued at lower than 30,000 euros, that the organisation does on their own without the support of procurement. There's a lot of opportunity in that activity. There's also a lot of risk. We've got a lot of independent people or internal buyers across the business that probably could do with some good practice procurement expertise, that could do with some good commercial support when they're going through that process. Can you share a bit about how we're trying to help organisations in that space?
So I think what you've just called out there is a really good example. It's this concept of enabling almost like self-service outcomes through good PCX. You're right, most procurement is low value, high volume. But right now, procurement is constantly dragged into support, or a lot of the time dragged into support because there is an absence of either technology or an understanding of the process, or a willingness to engage with the process for a number of reasons. By driving good PCX outcomes, like what we're sort of striving to do is actually empowering the broader community, the frontline users that you were talking about there, Helen, to go out there, self-service, get the outcome that they need, seamlessly engage with the supplier to deliver the outcome that they need, but at the same time enabling this unconscious competence within the business where procurement, and by way of that, byproduct of that, the executive are also getting the outcomes that they need from a compliance standpoint and from a reporting and data insights standpoint.
You're exactly right, Chris. And what we can't forget is that these individuals, our colleagues, our team members, buying things isn't just an activity they do when they come to work each day. They have an expectation of how simple it should be to send 5 quotes out because they need their air conditioner at home serviced. They have an expectation of how simple that should be. If internally at work we make it more difficult than what they're used to in their personal lives, we're always going to be up against it. So I think the crux here is that procurement customer experience is about thinking about those processes, really mapping out that journey that these stakeholders are undertaking, and figuring out where the friction points are and where we can make it really easy.
And I think the key part there is a great customer experience and a great user experience across technology. If users, whether that's suppliers or internal buyers, are engaged and using that technology, that will translate into good data quality. The data will be up to date, it'll be accurate, and then that transforms into great data insights for the organisation to be able to grow and improve on.
There's a final customer group that we haven't spoken about a lot yet, which is the executives. Yep. So, Chris, maybe you can share a wee bit about our approach to data, our approach to changing the executive conversation.
Yeah, so look, I think it's encouraging the executive to look at it in the opposite direction to how we normally do, right? We're flipping it on its head. Traditionally, when we've engaged with customers, prospects around achieving procurement outcomes, it's looking at the executive as probably the core user group, procurement management, procurement team as a secondary, and then suppliers and end users down the bottom. There's this strong appreciation now that working from the bottom back up to the top, having people who want to engage with the process, be it external and external, running a simple process that's still enabling all these compliance outcomes, is by default enabling these strategic objectives that procurement and the executive are looking to drive. As Helen said, without people willingly taking part in the process, or by skipping parts of the process or circumventing it, or paying lip service to it where possible, like the data insights that we're collecting in the tool are questionable. By having people willingly take part in the process, they are automatically unlocking all these outcomes that the executive's looking to drive. So fundamentally, from PCX, as I said, we flipped it on its head. We will service the executive, but the way that we deliver the outcomes for that executive is through that prioritization of the suppliers and those front-end users as key critical users within the system, and giving them the user experience that they need to take part in that process.
Yeah, I think you raise a really important point. We've all been in the procurement technology space for a long time, and a procurement technology project is always sponsored by an executive who wants the outcomes and the benefits of that project. If we can drive personal value for that end user that needs to actually go out and run an activity, the byproduct will be good compliance. The byproduct will be good value for money. The byproduct will be some more competitive tension in our lower value quotation processes. So what we're trying to do is, instead of making an executive run a very heavy change management process for people to adopt, we're getting people to say, hey, I want to use this because it's easier. I get to my outcome quicker. I get to go back to my BAU faster. I get to start my project sooner, etc., etc.
And I think a key outcome there is the perception of procurement changes fundamentally in the organisation too. Procurement are there to be enablers, and whether they like it or not, they're not always seen as enablers. By taking this approach and enabling these good PCX outcomes, they are well loved by the business, and they are seen as people that are enabling the business to achieve the outcomes the business needs to achieve. Which means when we talk about some of the broader strategic challenges that organisations will have, ESG, supply chain, etc., you're even better placed to address that, because you've got a willing organisation and supply base that wants to work with procurement to deliver these outcomes, because procurement is seen to be delivering so much value to how those parts of the business that they need to unlock themselves or deliver on.
Helen, we speak quite a bit about how much technology the average business professional has to use, from their HR systems to their procurement systems and so on and so forth. Can you share a little bit about how we're trying to bring users into an ecosystem that they're already familiar with?
Yeah, it's so important. Nowadays, every day we're interacting with so many different business applications. So it's very consciously, we're now thinking about how we create that user experience that isn't just within the product, but across the ecosystem, with applications that a user might be using within their organisation that is around productivity. It may not be anything to do with procurement, but it's enabling them to get some of those procurement-related tasks done easily, quickly, and gets that engagement that we've been talking about, and their adoption of those procurement policies across the organisation.
Anything you want to build on there, Chris? What are we talking about specifically?
So what we're trying to do here is engage the users in an ecosystem they're comfortable with. We'll use a great example, Microsoft Teams, Slack, these collaboration tools that these organisations will use to drive pretty much every aspect of their business. Traditionally, we've pulled that person out of that environment, moved them over to another platform that they're probably unfamiliar with, because if we think about how often a person will run a procurement exercise, or how often a supplier will engage with you specifically around responding to a tender or a quote, it's not that often. I think if I was to summarise, there's a growing appreciation now that the strategic owners of an outcome within the business are never going to unlock and deliver on that in themselves. It's a team effort. So what we need to do as providers is provide that rich environment, user-centric design, and that customer experience that is going to enable these procurement owners to work with their customers, suppliers, internal users, and the executive to deliver these outcomes.
I couldn't agree more. We can't lose sight of the fact that procurement are an internal service centre. The digital environment that they both display their services and allow people to engage with is the critical thing. I just wanted to say thank you. Always enjoy sitting down and discussing these topics with you both. I think we've unpacked some really important stuff there today. I think there's some really valuable snippets that customers can easily pick up. So thank you again. I'm really looking forward to continuing this discussion with you both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.